There is a quiet, undeniable wisdom that comes with aging. Your body and your intuition no longer tolerate the toxic dynamics your mind used to politely rationalize. Think about the last time you visited someone and drove home in total silence, feeling a heavy ache in your chest. You couldn't pinpoint a specific argument, but you felt quietly erased. This is not a coincidence, it is your intuition recognizing disrespect. In the Buddhist tradition, the concept of kalyana mitta, or true friendship, is considered the highest form of spiritual wealth. The Buddha never equated compassion with being a passive doormat for others' unkindness. To help you honor the wisdom of your years, let's examine 7 everyday phrases people use that actively reveal their lack of respect, so you can choose peace over painful obligation. 1. I'm just too busy right now, maybe next time. In modern American culture, we have elevated busyness to a status symbol. We often wear our exhaustion like a badge of honor, and because of this, saying one is too busy sounds like a perfectly reasonable, polite excuse. But as you enter the later chapters of your life, you begin to see through the illusion of this phrase. We must make a critical distinction between a genuine, temporary scheduling conflict and a chronic pattern of unavailability. If an old friend or a family member continuously pushes your plans to next week, and next week turns into next month, and next month turns into never, they are not communicating their schedule. They are communicating their priorities. Everyone is busy. Yet, we always manage to carve out time for the things and the people we truly value. Consider the profound Buddhist teachings on mindful presence. The Buddha himself traveled across entire kingdoms, teaching thousands of disciples and managing the overwhelming complexities of a massive community. Yet, when a grieving mother or a confused, lonely seeker came to him, he stopped. He sat down. He offered his undivided attention. True kalyana mitta does not demand perfect, absolute availability. It does not ask someone to drop everything at a moment's notice. But it does require a sincere, genuine effort to show up. When someone consistently tells you they have no time for you, it is not a reflection of a full calendar, it is a choice to maintain distance. Recognizing this distance honestly is not an act of bitterness, but an act of profound clarity. Sitting by the window, wondering what you did wrong, only causes unnecessary suffering. You did nothing wrong. It is simply that the space you hold in their life has shifted. Accepting this truth allows you to stop pouring your precious, limited energy into a well that has run dry, and redirects your focus toward those who joyfully make space for you in their lives. 2. You should have called before coming over. Before we unpack this phrase, we must tread carefully. In today's fast-paced world, personal boundaries are often healthy and completely necessary. A younger relative working remotely on a tight corporate deadline, or a new parent trying to put a fussy toddler down for a nap, has a legitimate need for a heads-up. We should always strive to respect those basic, circumstantial boundaries. However, what we are examining here is not an occasional honest moment of poor timing. We are looking at a consistent, habitual response, a persistent pattern where your arrival is immediately treated as an irritating disruption rather than a cause for joy. Imagine a mother driving an hour to visit her adult son, bringing his favorite warm pastry from a local bakery, her heart full of anticipation. When the door opens, there is no smile, no warm welcome, or even a simple invitation to come inside. The very first words spoken are a cold, corrective statement that she should have called first. In that brief second, a warm, loving intention is met with a wall of sheer inconvenience. The underlying message is stark: your presence is not inherently welcome, it must be scheduled, vetted, and formally approved. In the Pali texts, the concept of metta, meaning loving kindness or boundless goodwill, is described as being so open that it resembles the unconditional love a mother holds for her only child. True, deep-rooted care does not constantly demand an appointment. When a relationship is built on mutual respect and genuine affection, an unexpected knock on the door is generally met with hospitality and grace, even if the timing isn't perfect. If someone makes you feel that you must constantly justify taking up physical space in their home or their life, they are telling you something important. In your golden years, your presence is a gift. You deserve to be celebrated and treasured, not merely tolerated as a disruption to someone else's daily routine. 3. Can't you take a joke? Or, I was just kidding. Picture a lively family dinner or a gathering with friends you have known for decades. The conversation flows until, suddenly, it turns toward you. Perhaps it is a mocking exaggeration of your recent memory lapses, a sarcastic jab at your physical limitations, or a cruel imitation of a mistake you made in the past. Everyone at the table erupts into laughter, except you. The comment stings. But the moment you express your discomfort or try to defend your dignity, a defensive shield is immediately thrown up. You are told to stop being so serious, and they ask why you cannot simply take a joke. This phrase is incredibly deceptive because it hides behind the universal appeal of humor. In healthy relationships, humor is a beautiful bridge. It brings people together, finds the absurdity in shared human experiences, and laughs with you. But humor that is specifically designed to diminish you, to poke relentlessly at your vulnerabilities, or to test the boundaries of what abuse you will accept, is not genuine comedy. It is power and dominance dressed up in a punchline. By saying they were just kidding, the speaker completely absolves themselves of accountability, shifting the blame onto you for not finding their cruelty entertaining. The Buddha was remarkably precise when he laid out the path to a liberated life, particularly in his teachings on samavaka, or right speech. According to the Eightfold Path, right speech must meet strict criteria. It must be truthful, it must be kind, it must be timely, and it must be beneficial. Notice that there is no loophole or exception in the ancient texts that permits words that cause harm as long as you were joking. A wound does not stop bleeding simply because the blade was delivered with a smile. If someone continuously tells you that you cannot take a joke every time they hurt you, they have made a conscious decision that their fleeting entertainment is far more valuable than your emotional well-being. 4. You're being way too sensitive. Of all the phrases we are exploring, this one might be the most quietly devastating. When someone tells you that you are too sensitive, they are doing something far more insidious than simply disagreeing with your point of view. They are actively dismissing who you are. This phrase operates as a form of emotional gaslighting. It strips away your right to feel hurt and subtly rewrites reality, suggesting that the problem is not their unkind behavior, but rather your flawed emotional response to it. Consider a woman who, over the course of several years, endures small, cutting remarks from a sibling. She faces a snide comment about her weight, a passive-aggressive critique of her life choices, or a dismissal of her grief. Every time she gathers the courage to express that she was hurt, she is met with the accusation of being oversensitive and overreacting. After enough repetitions of this cycle, she eventually stops speaking up. She learns to swallow her voice, to absorb the pain quietly, and worst of all, to distrust her own reality. She begins to wonder if there really is something wrong with her. Buddhist psychology offers a profound counter-narrative to this toxic dynamic. In Buddhist teachings, Vedana, which translates to feeling, tone, or sensation, is considered one of the 5 aggregates that make up human consciousness. Our feelings are not mere decorations, nor are they character flaws or errors to be corrected. They are real, fundamental data about our moment-to-moment experience. Mindfulness practice does not teach us to become numb, cold, or disconnected. It teaches us to observe our feelings with profound clarity and wisdom, neither clinging to them nor forcefully pushing them away. It absolutely never asks us to let another person dictate whether our pain is correct. If a person consistently treats your feelings as a nuisance or an overreaction, that relationship is no longer a safe sanctuary for your heart. Trust your sensitivity. It is the birthplace of your wisdom. 5. Why can't you just let the past go? Imagine a scenario where you have carried a deep, quiet wound for decades. Perhaps it was a profound betrayal by a sibling during the grueling years of caring for your aging parents, or a long-standing pattern of neglect from a friend precisely when you needed them most. One quiet afternoon, after doing years of internal work and gathering immense courage, you decide to finally voice this pain, hoping for mutual understanding and closure. But the very moment the words leave your lips, the other person sighs heavily, rolls their eyes, and dismissively tells you to drop it because it happened years ago. Just like that, the door to healing is aggressively slammed shut. On the surface, letting go sounds like profound, enlightened spiritual advice. In modern American culture, it perfectly mimics the language of self-help, therapy, and mindfulness. But we must make a vital, highly discerning distinction here. There is a kind of letting go that is holy, the conscious, voluntary release of resentment that we actively practice in meditation to free our own hearts from the toxic burden of anger. That is a beautiful, internal process done for your own spiritual liberation. However, being instructed to let it go by the exact person who caused the wound, especially before that wound has even been acknowledged, validated, or apologized for, is not spiritual wisdom. It is forced amnesia. It is a demand for emotional erasure. In Buddhism, the law of karma teaches us that actions have real consequences that ripple through time, and true resolution requires facing those realities with open eyes. A relationship cannot authentically heal around a wall of silence that one person selfishly imposes on the other to avoid accountability. Trying to build a healthy relationship on unacknowledged pain is like trying to build a house on a fractured foundation. When someone uses this phrase to silence your legitimate hurt, they are not inviting you into a shared space of peace. They are actively prioritizing their own comfort and protecting their ego at the direct expense of your dignity. You deserve to be heard. You have an absolute right to your history, and a true companion will sit with the discomfort of their past mistakes rather than issuing a dismissive ultimatum. 6. We don't need to get into all that heavy stuff. We live in a society that is increasingly obsessed with toxic positivity, which is the relentless pressure to maintain a cheerful, upbeat facade regardless of what is truly happening beneath the surface. As we journey into the later seasons of our lives, our reality undeniably gets heavier. You inevitably face the loss of lifelong peers, the physical realities of a changing body, the shifting dynamics of your family tree, and the natural, existential contemplation of your own legacy and mortality. Sometimes, you simply need a safe, unfiltered space to verbalize your fears, your profound loneliness, or your quiet grief. But when you tentatively try to open these tender doors with a companion, they quickly pivot the conversation, forcing a smile and insisting that you should both keep things positive and avoid all that heavy stuff. This is a subtle but profoundly damaging form of emotional stonewalling. By refusing to engage with what is real, tender, and sometimes intensely painful for you, they are leaving you profoundly isolated in the exact moments when you need connection the most. In the rich Buddhist tradition, the quality of karuna, which is often translated simply and politely as compassion, has a much deeper, more visceral, and challenging root meaning in the ancient Pali language. It literally means to tremble at the pain of another. It is the courageous, radical willingness to be moved by someone else's suffering, and the absolute, unwavering refusal to look away when things get dark. A person who truly cares for you will not always find your heavy conversations easy or pleasant. They might feel awkward, they might struggle to find the right words, and they might have no solutions to offer. That is perfectly fine. But they will try. They will sit beside you in the heavy, uncomfortable silence because your emotional reality matters infinitely more to them than their temporary conversational convenience. A relationship where only one person's comfort is being fiercely guarded, while the other's pain is swept under the rug, is not a genuine partnership. You have lived too much life to pretend everything is always fine. You deserve a companion who will not look away when the lights grow dim. 7. You always. Or, you never. This final phrase is perhaps the most subtly destructive of all the things we have discussed, primarily because it is not merely a statement about a specific, isolated disagreement. It is a total, sweeping verdict on your entire character. Imagine expressing to a loved one that you felt left out of a recent family decision, only to be immediately met with the accusation that you always overreact to everything. Or perhaps you ask for a little bit of physical assistance during a difficult health week, and you are told that you never think about anyone but yourself. These extreme, absolute words, always and never, do something very specific and psychologically dangerous in a dynamic. They reduce a complex, living, breathing human being to a single, static, and deeply negative caricature. In cognitive behavioral psychology, this is known as all-or-nothing thinking, a cognitive distortion that fuels conflict. In Buddhist philosophy, it represents a deep ignorance, or avijja, of the very nature of reality. The doctrine of anicca, or impermanence, is the foundational bedrock of understanding existence. Anicca teaches us that absolutely everything is in a constant, beautiful, and sometimes terrifying state of flux. The universe changes, the seasons change, and most importantly, people change. Furthermore, the concept of anatta, or non-self, reminds us that we are not fixed, rigid entities. You are not the same person you were at 30, or 50, or even last year. You are a profoundly evolving, striving, suffering, and growing soul. To assert that you always do anything is to fundamentally deny the universal truth of impermanence. It unfairly traps you in a psychological cage built from past conflicts. When someone consistently uses absolute terms to describe your behavior, they are flatly refusing to truly see you. They are looking at a fixed, comfortable story they have constructed in their own mind over the years. They would rather lazily hold on to that outdated, neatly packaged narrative than do the hard, empathetic work of encountering the person you have actually become today. Any relationship that insists on interacting with a diminished, frozen version of you is not a relationship with a living person, it is a relationship with a ghost. You have survived far too much, and grown too profoundly, to let anyone shrink you down to a single, unfair sentence. The mindful response: what to do next? Now that we have clearly identified these 7 phrases, the most critical question remains: what do we do with this awareness? It is essential to approach this realization not with bitterness, but with profound wisdom. The Buddhist path is never a path of retaliatory anger. It is never about building aggressive walls and falsely calling it strength, nor is it about punishing those who have hurt us. When we look deeply, we can see that many of the people who use these 7 phrases are not intentionally malicious, they are simply unaware. In Buddhist terms, they are operating from a place of avijja, meaning ignorance. They are carrying their own unhealed wounds, their own fragile ego defenses, and their own generational patterns of poor communication that no one ever helped them dismantle. Perhaps they dismiss your feelings because their own feelings were chronically dismissed in childhood. Perhaps they use weaponized humor because it is the only way they know how to feel powerful in a world that makes them feel small. We can absolutely understand this. We can hold immense, boundless compassion for their suffering. However, and this is a crucial distinction in both modern psychology and ancient wisdom, understanding someone's suffering does not require you to absorb it. You can have deep empathy for a drowning person, but if they are pulling you underwater, you must let go to survive. In the practice of upekkha, or equanimity, we learn to observe the chaotic emotions of others without letting them destabilize our own inner peace. You can love someone deeply, wish them well from afar, and still consciously choose not to be harmed by them. Often, our logical minds try to rationalize the disrespect we endure. We tell ourselves they are just having a bad day, or we remind ourselves they are family and we must put up with it. But while the mind can easily be tricked by social obligations and guilt, the body never lies. Modern somatic psychology aligns perfectly with ancient mindfulness practices by teaching us that your body keeps the score. To navigate these relationships, I offer you a simple but profoundly effective practice to carry with you. I call it the body compass. After every visit, after every family dinner, or even after a long phone call with someone, take 5 quiet minutes for yourself. If you have just driven home, do not turn off the car and rush inside right away. Sit in the driver's seat. Close your eyes. Take one slow, deep breath in, and let it out completely. Then, drop your awareness into your physical body. Notice your chest, your stomach, your shoulders. Ask yourself one brutally honest question: do I feel lighter or heavier than before I arrived? Do not judge the answer. Do not try to analyze or justify it. Just feel the quiet, honest signal of your own nervous system. If you feel lighter, if your heart feels expansive and safe, then nourish that relationship. Water it like a precious garden. But if you consistently feel heavier, if your chest feels tight, if you feel drained, exhausted, or smaller than when you arrived, let that be the vital information it is. Your body is trying to protect you. Listen to it. In American culture, we often misunderstand boundaries. We view them as acts of aggression, as punishments, or as selfish rejections. But through the lens of Buddhist wisdom, setting a boundary is an act of pure loving kindness directed inward. The Buddha taught that compassion must be boundless, radiating in all directions, and that absolutely includes the direction pointing back at yourself. Your own heart, your own mental well-being, and your own peace are no less important than anyone else's. They are equally sacred. Setting a boundary simply declares that you see reality clearly, you choose peace, and you will no longer pretend that what is harmful to you is harmless. You do not owe your endless presence, your time, or your emotional labor to spaces that actively diminish your light. Walking away from a table where respect is no longer being served is not a failure of love, it is the ultimate triumph of self-respect. As you navigate the later seasons of your life, your perspective naturally shifts. The superficial concerns of youth, such as accumulating acquaintances, attending every social event, or chronic people-pleasing, begin to fall away like autumn leaves. You have lived through decades of triumphs and heartbreaks. You have survived losses that fundamentally reshaped your world. With all that you have seen, all that you have loved, and all that you have overcome, your remaining time and your emotional energy are undeniably the most precious currencies you possess. You simply cannot afford to spend them on those who do not value their worth. The Buddha once described the ideal companion as someone who does not abandon you in times of difficulty, who rejoices in your happiness without envy, a quality known as mudita, and who gently encourages you toward wisdom and goodness. A true friend does not demand that you shrink yourself to fit into their comfort zone. They celebrate your expansion. Do not settle for crumbs of affection. Choose wisely where you spend your sacred time. Choose the doors where, when you knock, you are greeted with genuine, unburdened warmth. Choose the dinner tables where your voice is heard, validated, and cherished. Choose the friends who, when you finally say goodbye and drive home, leave you feeling not smaller, not drained, but more profoundly and beautifully yourself. You have lived long enough to know exactly what it feels like to be truly seen and respected. May you have the gentle, courageous, and clear wisdom to gracefully release anything that no longer serves your peace. May you be peaceful. May you be happy. May you be entirely free from suffering. Walk gently, and take care of your beautiful heart.